Ladies and, well, ladies. We're talking business. Ladies' business. No, not that ladies' business. Ladies in business. Especially tradie business. Whether you're a CEO, self-employed, working for someone or supporting someone else in theirs, this is a podcast about ladies in tradie businesses. Join your host, Nick Cox, one half of Tradies in Business and the Tradiepreneur program, as she interviews inspirational, everyday, motivational and extraordinary women from all industries and walks of life about what it takes to be a truly successful, modern lady in business.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Ladies in Business podcast. It's a funny day here today in Brisbane. It's a bit sort of showery and weird and strange, and it's leading me into this strange time of year that's cool and cold and not very Brisbane-like at all. And it's probably the most important time where I really value my home and the time and the effort and energy I have put into, I guess, creatively designing the interior of my home so that I can feel warm and snuggly and protected at this strange time of year. And that's very indicative of who we're talking to today. Today I'm going to be talking with a fellow Almond Flat white drinker, yay for the Almond Flat whites, Donna Guyler, who is a full-service interior designer and the chief problem solver at Donna Guyler Design. She's also a mum to a 12-year-old son. Welcome, Donna. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me.
I am a massive lover of interiors. It was a big part of my career before I started on my venture with Tradies in Business and Ladies in Business. I could talk about this till the cows come home. I'm very excited to be talking to an interior designer today. Can you tell us a little bit, Donna, about, I guess, your journey so far, how you came to be where you are right now in your own business?
Yes. First of all, I love that you could talk about this all day. I mean, how much time do we have? Because we could get carried away here.
I love it.
So I am the sorry, Nicole.
It's okay.
So I am the founder and creative director of a boutique interior design studio. We're based on the Gold Coast. We are a full service interior design studio. Mm-hmm. I haven't always been an interior designer. I worked on the corporate circuit for many years, around 15 years before I decided to have a complete switch into interior design. I had a great job when I was working in the corporate world. I did have a great job and some great opportunities. I traveled a bit for work and I worked with some really great people. I worked with lawyers and engineers, but there was something, just deeply unfulfilling, I guess, down at my core. And I guess that was, that I had a creative calling. So, it took me a while, but, in my mid-30s, I decided to act on that. So I decided to study. I got my qualification. Just in my last year, I was offered some work experience with a cabinet maker, a local cabinet making factory. I worked there for a bit. They offered me a job. I lapped that up. It was really great experience to help me to hone my drawing skills and to learn how things were made and the production side of interior design, specifically in cabinetry and joinery design. And, it's funny that I sort of kickstarted my career there, because fast forward to where I am now, it's very much a specialist skill that we offer here in the design studio. So it's funny, isn't it, to look back, that we say everything unfolds as it should, and it certainly did. But, between there and in here, I left that cabinet making factory. I contracted to some other interior designers. I've done some property styling. I've done some interior decorating. I felt that wasn't really my jam either. So I landed back with another cabinet maker. And that was the last job I had before I launched my studio. So I was the lead interior designer there. And the factory, it was quite a large factory. They had a residential division and a commercial division. They decided to close out their commercial division. So I essentially would have lost my job. But I resigned. And, next thing I know, I had a business. So I did have some clients that I was working with, obviously, at the cabinet making factory. I was designing their kitchens and their bathrooms and So I contacted them to let them know that I was leaving, and they said, look, you know, where are you going? You know, we want to continue to work with you. So yeah, I just really had to sort of facilitate that. And yeah, that you know, forced me into setting up the framework to create my own business, which is really how I roll. I'm definitely risk adverse. I don't dive into anything. I need to be nudged and pushed and coerced, and deliberate and overanalyze. But yeah, so 7 years ago, I launched my studio from the third bedroom of my home.
Wow.
It was just me and my laptop and my student ArchiCAD license.
Wow.
And doing all the things myself. And so yeah, we have grown substantially over time at a steady pace, at a comfortable pace for me. So we're now a team of 6. There's 6 of us now. We've recently just moved into our new studio on the Gold Coast because we obviously needed a bigger space. So we're fully set up here, and yeah, we operate here out of the studio on the Gold Coast, but we do work with clients all over the country.
That's a fascinating, I guess, career change, Donna. That's brave, even though you say that you like to take your time making decisions, and I'm sure you did at the time. That's a really big, brave career change to make, and could be super intimidating, challenging, hard to be supported through. That's really tough. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, that time where you made that change, the thought process, what went into making the change? Was everybody in your life supportive, or did you have some people that were also fearful perhaps of what the change might mean for them or the family life, etc.?
I had significant support around it. I think everybody around me in my life that matters to me could see probably for a long time that I needed to make a change. So when I decided to make that change, yes, I had an incredible support network. The only fear was coming from me, 100%. And you know, that still pops up. Let's be honest.
Yes.
But yeah, so I had a great support network, including I was actually working for an engineering firm at the time, and I spoke to them about, I was full-time, but then I enrolled in uni full-time. So they were even supportive of me, you know, and sort of working my hours around lectures. So I was actually, I was working in Brisbane, and I started studying at QUT. So I was able to work my lectures in around my hours. So yeah, they were incredibly supportive of me. I then fell pregnant. As I was studying, and that threw a real spanner in the works.
Yeah.
I was incredibly ill during my pregnancy. That's another story for another time. So I actually had to defer because I was that ill. Anyway, it was an incredibly challenging time. So I was having this huge pivot in my career professionally, and then of course, you know, baby on the way. Just pile it all on.
Yeah.
But you know, I knew it was the right thing for me. So yeah, look, I pushed through. You know, I had my son, and then I went back to studying. We'd moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast in the meantime, and eventually I finished my studies. So yes, it was incredibly challenging, as it is for all mums, you know, in business and studying. You know, juggling motherhood and, you know, just being a wife and just, you know, life challenges in general. But I just knew after such a long time, you know, as much as there was road humps in the way, I just knew it was the right path for me. So yeah, so I pushed through, and I'm just so grateful that I did. And it makes it so much more rewarding when you get to the other side, right? When it's been a challenging road. Yeah.
I think at the heart of every good business is passion, and it can be really challenging not to lose that passion along the way, because business, as I'm sure we'll delve into, can be really difficult. It's not easy, comes with a lot of fear and pushing through perhaps some boundaries and pushing through fear that gets in the way and prevents us from doing what we need to do. And if we can manage to keep that passion in place, that's not quite so challenging, that hard stuff, because we're keeping that passion at front of mind. And yet, unfortunately, we see many business owners where that falls away. How have you kept that passion, I guess, important to you at the top of mind so that some of the challenges are just that little bit easier to face?
Yeah, it's a great question because you're absolutely right. It is, incredibly challenging some days more than others. For me, it comes down to mindset. Uh, yeah, which, it is challenging in itself. So I can comfortably say I have a great mindset now. I haven't always been here. Certainly when I started, you know, I was running a bit. Who knows how to run a business, right? Like, you can go to uni, you can go to TAFE, you can learn the skills, the tools of the trade. You can have the drive and the dedication and the passion and those things that you mentioned. But running a business is the real deal. So you don't really, you're not taught those skills. It doesn't matter where, what area you decide to study in. You really have to find your way. And there are loads of setbacks and loads of challenges, but I guess simultaneously loads of highs and wins. And I think it's just, knowing at your core, I guess, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, understanding, what your zone of genius is and what your gift is, and understanding that the world needs that. So despite how challenging things are, you're always going to get to the other side. And in real terms, we've had quite a challenging week in the studio. We've had a few things that have come up for us this week in terms of our projects, and also for us as a team. But it's not the first time we've faced challenges, and I know, because you develop momentum through business, right, that eventually we will get to the other side. And we will be tighter as a team, or we will learn from whatever has happened on that project that we need to be perhaps more diligent with, perhaps our drawings, or we need to be more clear with our communication, or we need to change the way we communicate with this particular trade. And I think it's just knowing that there's always a solution, and you're always going to get to the other side. It gets foggy some days when when it's really, really stressful, for sure. But yeah, just, knowing what drives you, having faith, I guess, in the way things are unfolding, and knowing that you're going to be A-okay, and there's going to be positive that you can take from every situation.
Absolutely. You highlighted really nicely there communication, how important it is, whether it's through the design principles and how we communicate through our drawings, whether it's through the communication we have with, in your case, the trades or the clients that you're working with. Communication is at the heart of all businesses, whether we want to admit it or not, and it can be one of the most challenging parts of what we do. Given that I think that your trade, as you referenced, thinks in a particular frame, I imagine it could be challenging at times. Challenging seems to be the word of the episode. Sorry, we'll change that up. I imagine that it could be difficult at times to find ways to communicate with the various different clients. And I think that's something we all have in common in business, is fine-tuning our communication, or perhaps it's more than that. Perhaps it's actually listening and learning and understanding our clients so that we can communicate in a way they understand to drive a better outcome or result. Is that something you were always aware of, Donna, or a muscle that just built up over time? How did you find that for you and your business?
Yes, it's a really great point. And it's something that I feel quite passionate about in the studio, because you're right. For us and what we do, communication is incredibly important at various levels, at all different levels. And, for us as an interior design team, we are communicating with clients, as you say, with our suppliers, with our contractors, and with on-site trades. And, I guess all of those relationships vary, I guess, in terms of what we bring to them, what they bring to us, and a contribution. And so I did learn very early on that, you have to adapt. So I think one thing I did notice was, coming from a corporate career over to the job site, I had established a set of communication skills coming from the corporate sector, which is, in short, very direct. I probably had more boundaries then than I have now. I also wasn't working for myself then. I was beating to someone else's drum. So it's so easy to enforce, boundaries then. It's much harder when you're working for yourself, obviously. But I learned very quickly that trades, for example, do not respond to that. So I had to soften my approach. But then I softened it too much, perhaps to the point where I was allowing myself to be taken advantage of. That didn't work either.
No.
So I had to find a middle ground, really to learn how to communicate and work with trades so that we both get a really great outcome. And that's very different to how we communicate with our clients and with our suppliers. And, we have a branding guide in the studio, and we have a branding voice guide, I think it's called. I should know what it's called.
Yes.
It's a formal document, and it's, I guess it's about the core of that document is about what we represent as a studio. So what our brand represents, which is always open and clear communication. And we provide a flexibility, in the way that we communicate. So, that's not for everyone. It hasn't been for everyone that's come into the studio to work with us, but it's absolutely the way that, I drive communication in our studio, because like I said before, everything is achievable. So particularly when you come to a scenario on site, or you're dealing with a challenging client, it just the smallest tweak in your communication can result in a positive outcome or a negative outcome, which nobody wants. So so I think flexibility is key. But like you say, also listening. I think the art of conversation is one person talking, the other person sharing their perspective, and it's understanding those perspectives as you're in that conversation, rather than just one person firing at the other and the other person firing back. That lovely art of conversation, which I think we're losing with this age of social media, right?
I 100% agree. It is disappearing pretty quickly. Even if I watch my kids, we were talking about our kids before we came live, and my kids are all adults now, and they've been brought up to converse, lots of family dinners, lots of extended family spending time together. We really have had to force them to learn how to have conversations and hold a conversation with one another. But I see their friends come and they just all sit on their phones, and these kids are adults. They're actually quite a bit older. So I do fear about what changes for that. And it does present some specific difficult points with our teams as they start to roll through and we're dealing with another generation. So communication really is at the heart, I think, of creating great business outcomes. You sit in a really interesting dynamic, much like we did as builders, where you are dealing with trades, you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with suppliers. It's an interesting dynamic that you have in business and the way it all sort of pieces together. One of the things I think that, so the tradie wives that are listening to the call today, a lot of you would be working with interior designers or having the opportunity to work with interior designers. And many of us don't actually understand how we can all work together well and how that relationship, I guess, actually should develop or is best placed to develop. Donna, I'd love to hear your perspective on, I guess, the difference between an interior designer and some of the other interior services, whether it be decorating or styling, and because they're very different, as we both know. How does that look, I guess, to the trades potentially? What is the difference in the relationship for them?
So yes, there are definitely defined disciplines within this industry, and sometimes the lines are blurred, and there is a reason for that, which will, I believe. But I guess in terms of the different disciplines, interior designers, interior decorators, interior stylists. But also, building designers, draftsmen, architectural designers, architects, interior architects, there's a lot of us.
Yes.
Each is, as I said, a defined discipline, and they all have a place in this industry. But I guess, there is some confusion about, who is responsible for what. And I think, in terms of the trades and also in terms of clients who, just the everyday person who may be looking to embark on a project, who do they need on their team? So I guess the difference in relation to interior design. So an interior designer is a qualified designer who is trained in CAD for a start. So we have technical drawing skills. So we design homes or commercial spaces, whichever area you decide to get into. We have a spatial awareness. We have an understanding of the principles of design so that we're able to really design homes from the ground up and produce the conceptual and working drawings that communicate that design. So that's exactly what we do in the studio. So we are a team of interior designers. So for example, if I'm looking to expand the team, if I'm reaching out, I'm always looking for qualified interior designers who have a set of technical drawing skills. So that's the role of an interior designer. So we can take a project from, commencement where, you're thinking about renovating right through to the interior decoration side where we're throwing the last scatter cushion on the sofa. So it's quite a wide skill set. So interior design incorporates interior design and interior decoration. So interior decoration removes that technical side of interior design. So an interior decorator's role is critical to aesthetic updates to a home. So paint, changing out paint colors, window treatments, soft furnishings, that decorative side of your project is where you could engage an interior decorator. So for example, if you weren't necessarily renovating, you were just looking to update a few rooms in your home, an interior decorator or an interior stylist would meet those needs. So no sort of construction or renovation works involved. And interior stylists, I think, are also, they're really gaining some traction in the property styling arena. Yeah, I think you'd be mad not to style your home now if you were putting it on the market for sale. And I think, the interior styling discipline has really, gained some ground there. So that's sort of the clear differences between the disciplines.
I think that's the best explanation I've ever heard. It is, they really are. And the word discipline is 100% accurate. There are real disciplines between each of the roles. And I think for a long time, I remember when my husband was a builder before we actually met, and there was a lot of fear for him and the trades he was working with around working with interior designers. And I think that just came through a couple of things. I think at the time, the perception as we all grew up in our youth of they weren't portrayed particularly well in films and television. I don't know that the understanding was there of their technical abilities or their conceptual understanding of an entire design and what that can do for the livability of a home and the sense of family and community within that home. So I think a lot of fear came from it. Well, what would they know? I see the same fear around architects and builders quite frequently. And yet when they work together, when we have a team that can work together, we drive the best outcome for the homeowner. It is incredible to see the differences in a space that have been created by an interior designer with the work, that entire team, the work with the architect, the work with the builder. We can get a far better result for the client, both in livability, costability, and design and the way that the whole project flows and feels. So I would really encourage any of those builders' wives that are listening to throw out those connotations of what that might feel like and consider putting an interior designer onto your design team, because it really does change the outcome for your clients. I have seen time and time again incredible outcomes in renovation spaces because we did a lot of work with Queenslanders, and they're beautiful homes, but for the modern family, they can be quite challenging to live in. And so that input can make just a mind-blowing difference to the finished product, which is attributed equally to you as the builder who is delivering that result on the practical grounds. Donna, business, it's tough. It's not the easiest thing in the world to take on as a challenge. I'd love to hear some of the stories. You said that you were really considered, that it took you some time to go into business. And yet I know through working with hundreds of business owners, even when we are cautious and risk adverse, stuff happens. We fall into holes, or we manage through that ebb and flow, I guess, of good times and bad. The last 2 years have been particularly challenging, and we're seeing a lot of ongoing challenges now with material delays. not being able to get staff on the ground for the trades that you would be working with. I wonder if that's also a problem for you. The rain delays and the flooding around our local areas have really created some issues that will be ongoing as well. It's tough, right? It hasn't been easy at all. And so that's 2 years of your 6 or 7 years you've been in business?
Yes, this is my 7th year.
Yeah. So 2 of those, that's almost 3 now. That's a long time to be facing some of the things that we have faced. Can you tell us a bit about, I guess, initially making that decision, what went into making that decision, structuring that framework that you referenced earlier? What did it look like early on, and how has that evolved and changed over time?
What did it look like earlier? It was a hot mess, Nicole. I'm not going to lie. Honestly, it was. I fell to pieces, and it would have been interesting to watch, from an outsider's perspective, because if you think about it, I came from this, rigid corporate space where we tracked every minute of our time. You had to be delivering billable hours. We had, very clear set of boundaries. Scope of works was crystal clear. We allowed no scope creep. I was working for established firms, large size firms. So I came from that to launch my own business, and I literally fell to pieces. So because there's just this pressure, and you put the pressure on yourself, you create that pressure yourself, right?
Yeah.
I struggled initially. Because I had projects right from the get-go, and I had clients and I had to deliver, but I was on my own, and I felt incredibly alone because it was like, what on earth have I done? How do I pull this together? Probably one of the best decisions I made early on in my studio is I hired a business coach, which I would highly recommend to anyone at any stage in their business. So I'm working with a business coach, a business mentor now, and I will continue to do that because that is such a critical support, because we just don't have all the answers, know. So I think it's probably partially just being thrown in the deep end, facing those challenges along the way, being optimistic, having the right mindset, as we said before, when you face those challenges, and looking at it from a positive perspective. Okay, so we faced this challenge. That didn't work for us. We need to switch things up to make sure, we never have to have that conversation again, or, we're not going to have to rectify that enormous error on site again.
Yes.
And I think, it's really those challenges, right, that make you grow and become a better designer, a better business owner. And I think that it comes back to mindset, and you're right, sometimes it does get the better of us, and not everybody weathers the storm, and I get that too. It can be incredibly challenging. Like the last 2 years for us, Nicole, were it's so challenging. I mean, I could tell you all sorts of things that went down for us, particularly the back end of last year was probably the most challenging 3 months that I've ever experienced in the studio. So we had an influx of work during the pandemic, which happened right across our industry. And, essentially we're a small team. We're highly equipped, but we're a small team. And we just had a huge influx of inquiries, and, we took on too much work, and we weren't able to deliver. So the wheels were falling off for us. And then, of course, couple that with, extensive material delays and furniture and accessory item delays in the retail sector, rising prices. We work on a flat fee as well as a rate. So, that became an issue for us, where we were sort of, we had fixed price contracts with our client. It was incredibly challenging. There were tears across the team. There were late nights. There was wine. There was, late nights in the studio, early mornings. But, we got through it as a team. We had a huge Christmas party at the end of the year. And we kicked off the year with a whole new set of terms and conditions, for our interior design service agreement for our contract. So we literally went from 3 pages to 12 pages, Nicole.
Yeah.
Like, I just had to rewrite that. And luckily for me, my best friend is a lawyer, so she helps me to I know, right? To win.
Absolutely.
So she helped me to craft that. But, that was just one of the ways I thought, right, okay, we can't let this hold us back. Things are not changing. The world is what it is. To be honest, I don't know if we'll ever go back to the way that we were pre this pandemic. So we have to pivot and we have to adjust. And, even rewriting those conditions for me, just allowed me to just, take a load off as we kicked the year off, because I knew, despite the challenges that we faced last year, and in real terms, that was physically, mentally, and financially draining for us as a studio. So we had to rectify that, as we kicked off the new year across all of those 3 areas. But yeah, just making those changes allowed me to just go, okay, last year it was what it was, but we're just going to move forward now with a new perspective. And, with the system changes and the process changes that we need to adapt to what's happening. And, we're just going to do the best that we can again this year, like we do every year.
I think that it's that resilience in business that creates the results, though. It's understanding, it was the perfect storm, I think, last year, particularly as you referenced in the back end of the year, the perfect storm for construction. We've spoken at length on the podcast about how the foundation of the rebuild after COVID was very much placed on the trades back. And you're very much a very big part of that. Increased demand, high pressure, increased costs astronomically. Businesses can't sustain that. And we hadn't pre-prepared because none of us knew what was about to happen. There was no way to have a crystal ball into what unfolded at the back end of last year. And for a large part, a lot of people are still facing those challenges now. Particularly where we're having to wear fixed price contracts. It's a terrifying time for so many business owners. So having the resilience, I guess, to make change and move through that change is what will produce those longer lasting results. And through all of that, Donna, you've mentioned quite frequently mindset and how important that is for you as a business owner. How do you maintain your mindset? It's particularly through something like what you've just explained. I feel really stressed listening to that and knowing what that must have meant for your business, your personal life, your physical and mental health. How do you maintain a healthy mindset through something like that?
Yeah, it's it's not easy. It's not easy, right? I have to check myself constantly, to bring myself back to that, I guess, that state of calm. And as I said to you earlier, back to that driving force and that passion I have for interior design, for our studio, for my team. And I guess just having gratitude, gratitude. As last year, the year before was incredibly challenging, but it was incredibly challenging because we had so many people reaching out to us, wanting to engage us for our services, So yes, it was challenging, but how incredibly rewarding and flattering that we had so many people reaching out to us. So I guess it's, it's remembering those things, that people want to work with us and people are trusting in us. It's not easy. And let's be honest, I have challenging days, where it does all get, a little bit too much. And there have been times where I've thought, my Lord, should I just work in a bookstore? Like, where I can clock on at 8, 9 o'clock and clock off at 4 and, not necessarily have the stress. But, obviously that is never going to happen. I'm totally unemployable now. I couldn't work for anyone ever again.
I hear you 100%. Although I like the sound of a bookstore that maybe has a wine bar attached. That's probably my dream come true. Maybe I'll work towards owning one of those one day.
Now you're talking. Maybe we should open one, Nicole.
I love that idea. You can do all of the interior design and I'll just swan on in and recommend books and read wine all day. Drink wine all day. That does not sound terrible. We could do it on the Gold Coast too, just perfect for me. That's actually quite a brave business choice too, Donna, your location on the Gold Coast. I often think business choice or location starts out with where we live. We know the area very well. I don't actually know if that's how that worked for you. And yet the Gold Coast is extraordinarily competitive. I've got actually quite a few good friends that are interior designers in your area. Very highly competitive. Sure, there's a lot of work there as well. Has that been a challenge at any time, trying to distinguish yourself and finding that point of difference between your business and other businesses so that the right clients find you at the right time?
No, I haven't found it challenging, and I guess the reason is because I believe in us. I know what we do. I know what we bring as a studio, and I just I stay in my lane. So yes, there are some incredible designers on the Gold Coast and in Brisbane, across the country. I follow a lot of other incredible designers that I'm inspired by, and I support them and I encourage them, because at the end of the day, there is enough work for everybody, and everybody brings their own set of skills and flair and creativity, specifically in what we do. So I don't find it challenging at all. We're established now. We have an established aesthetic. We have an established process. So people come to us now for that aesthetic. So I guess working with new clients and bringing new clients into the studio is a much easier process now for us than it was, of course, when I started, when you just say yes to everybody, and you're also trying to find your own niche and your own style and your own, definitive way of doing things. But, we're established now. So, it's funny, like people often say to me, it's highly competitive on the Gold Coast, but I just don't see it that way. I don't see it as highly competitive. I just see, a pool of incredible designers and resources available to people that are looking to engage an interior designer, which anybody who's embarking on a renovation should, alongside their building team. So it's a win. It's a win for the renovator, and it's a win for our industry as well. Lots of other designers, we all inspire each other and support each other in running our businesses. We all know the challenges that we face. We can all relate to those, from one designer to another. So it's great to bounce some ideas off other designers from time to time too. I know I have a lot of friends that are designers, and we just genuinely bounce ideas off each other and scenarios off each other constantly. So
The interior design space, or the design space, I think as a whole, is a far more supportive community than the traditional trade space. I think the design space really has that understanding of abundance, and the traditional trade space is still largely in fear of not enoughness. They don't understand yet that there is an abundance of work. There's more than enough for everybody to go around. It might take some mindset set shifts. It might take some understanding of what you do best and leaning into that niche. And yet there's plenty of work for everybody everywhere, particularly at the moment. But even still, we still have clients come to us that are finding it challenging to find work, which might sound crazy to many of our listeners, and yet those businesses typically haven't done the work around establishing their point of difference or their niche in the area that they service, which is that real key, I think, to the operational differences. Donna, a question that I like to ask lots of our business ladies is your favourite tool for business. What could you simply not live without?
My tape measure.
That's the best tool ever.
Do I'm so old school in that sense. Yes, you're with me.
It's always on my desk.
I was just at a site measure last week, and the husband was there, and I whipped out my tape measure, and he said, "Oh, Donna, I've bought this, fabulous laser pointer." And you know what? You can laugh at me, you can judge me, but I whip my tape measure around in my stilettos like nobody's business.
I love it.
And I have my pencil. I work with a pencil, not a pen, and my pad. So I measure everything with a tape measure. I sketch everything by hand initially. I guess that's how we were taught as well. And so definitely couldn't go anywhere without my tape measure. I literally have, I don't know, we've got about 10 in the studio. I've got them in my car. I've got them in my home. I've got them in my handbag.
Me too. I have as many tape measures as I have wheelbarrows, which lots of regular listeners will understand is very funny indeed. There are tape measures literally I have one on my office, on my desk. There's one in the laundry, which isn't far from my office. There's 3 or 4 upstairs. I have the fancy laser measurers as well, but I don't like them. I find them hard to use. I invariably make a mistake when I'm using them, so I just don't. You can't go past the good old traditional tool.
No,
and like
I'm with
use
you
very frequently.
Yes, I'm with you. And I'm sure there's a million apps for it as well, right,
Yeah.
Nicole? But I can't, I don't know. I feel like maybe the time is coming where we're going to have to entertain that and shift, maybe just in terms of, efficiency, time efficiency, really. But for now, I'm resisting.
Yeah, resist away. I love it. It's some of those old-fashioned tools, I say with air quotes, are the best. They're most reliable.
Absolutely.
I still haven't broken a measuring tape yet. I've been through a couple of the digital measurers. Donna, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting with you today. Where can our listeners find out more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. They can come to us, to our website, www.donnaguyler.com. We have an Instagram page, which we're very active on, at Donna Guyler Design. We've actually just recently released our 2nd webisode series via our Instagram account.
Wow.
Yes, which is very cool. So we've completed a renovation project at Main Beach on the Gold Coast just at the end of last year. So we basically walk you through our whole design process and our whole thought process behind the design during the course of the renovation works, and we wrap that up into 3 episodes. So you can watch those on the website as well.
I love that idea. Listeners, have a think about how you could implement that in your business. It's brilliant. Donna, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Like I said, I could chat to you for hours around design. I am absolutely excited and full of energy seeing your background. I'm actually going to go and make some changes to mine over the Easter weekend now, because you don't think about the video space that you're on day in, day out. I do this all day. Haven't thought enough about it. Clients who are listening, you'll see that change, no doubt, very soon. Thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Ladies in Business. Got a guest you'd like us to interview? Maybe you have a story to share or some feedback to give. Find us on socials or drop us a message via the Tradies in Business website. Take care of yourself, ladies.